Hey guys, my name is VaulSC, hope that you're doing well. In this video we're going to be having a look at a game of Conquest, the last argument of kings. It's going to be a bat rep between my 100 kingdoms and my opponent using city-states. My opponent is Darren, but his army has been painted up by our local vanguard Hayden, who's been just posting so many of his beautiful photos on social media, and in this bat rep you'll get to see a lot of my photography of them as well, so it's going to be a cool one. I've played against city-states a lot on Tabletop Simulator, haven't really played them very much on the actual battlefield, so it's going to be really good to sort of see them in person. So without any further ado, let's just jump straight into it and have a look at some army lists. First of all, I am playing just a variation of what I normally go for, trying to incorporate these Steel Legions since they're my most recently painted up regiment. So I've got the Drillmaster, of course, and the Standard Bearer. In the big block of 6, you know, having the large group of them means that if you get charged, you can maybe lose half of them, but still put out a ton of damage, or you can spread them wide in that much larger frontage. Still trying out the Order of the Sword. They are an unreleased unit. I have my proxy models for them, and really the big question is what to equip the commander with. I do like putting him with a lot of combat gear. So for example, you can go with all of the tier 1, 2, 3 combat. I think that tier 1 is a much better option in tactical, because Indomitable is going to be used every single game. I mean, you get to pass one resolve check each time when you roll a batch of dice, and this is a unit that is almost always going to be charged and attacked throughout at least 2 rounds of combat in every single game. So given that you can spend 10 points on an upgrade that's going to get significant value every single game, I think you have to go for that, as opposed to investing in something that might do nothing or might do something. It's much rather to put your points into something which is going to work pretty much every single game. The other reason I really like it is that having the ability to do a free combat reform without having to roll the dice, because you passed your check basically, is crucial for a unit like that, because sometimes you're going to want to have a very wide frontage, you get attacked from the side, you don't have many units coming to bear onto the enemy, and other times you're going to be sort of deployed 3 wide with a rank at the back, and you want to spread out, and having the ability to do that with a successful pass, just a clean reform, is really, really important with this Indomitable rule giving you that little bonus. So the question remains about what kind of equipment to give him. I typically like Standard of Steel or something like that, just to give, or even Armor of Dominion, just to try and protect the unit, because it's all about trying to get as many counterattack reflects as possible, and just keeping them alive to make use of the good stats I've got there with Clash 4 Cleave 1. In this case, I'm trying out just a bit more of an offensive approach. Fiend Hunter Deadly Blades is available in this Flesh Cleaver item. Because Fiends, so Brutes I should say, Monsters and Brutes are so common, you know, it's quite likely he'll get that at some point with re-rolling the 5s and 6s, but the more important thing is the Deadly Blades, in my view. Just being able to punish them a little bit further, and it also really deters enemy characters from dueling him, even though we haven't invested very much in his kit. So there is that. I'm trying to get a army list with 8 regiments and 4 characters, so I've had to just stay with the 3 Ashen Dawn stands here. I prefer 4 or 5, but 3 is the number, just so I can fit in all of these other little cheap troops and bits and pieces here. So no equipment on the Imperial Officer, just couldn't afford it. Priest has the usual kit. Elysian Fragment, Focused Arcane 1, that is the optimal stuff for the Priest. And the Mage, just trying out the Kiss Farewell, even though she's just hanging back with the Men-at-Arms. The thinking here is that the Mercenary Crossbowmen can go up a bit further forward and be a screen, whereas I don't really want to I want to lose the Mage along with them, whereas the Men-at-Arms are going to hang back and try to avoid combat and just sit camping an objective, and she is just going to be able to shoot from that range with Kiss Farewell and School of Fire. So that is the strat. My opponent just trying out the troops that he can. He's got the Eidolon in there. I don't have a copy of his army list, so I just don't have the, really the items that he chose. But you can sort of see from this list what he has. There's a large unit of Hoplites, Hephaestion, and a lot of other smaller units there. So you'll get to see what he's taken throughout the game. Polymarch as the main Warlord there. We do have the Grind Them Down mission. This is the very last one in the pack here. It's an interesting one. What you do is, at the start of each supremacy phase, or right at the end of it I should say, you pick one of the zones that doesn't have any friendly troops in it. And if you then move onto it and capture it that turn, you get a bonus 3 points, whereas normally you only get 1 point for each, plus 2 if you're securing more than one. So the way it works is that both players accumulate a lot of points initially from moving on to those circles, and then later in the game, if you can push onto one of their zones, you rack up a whole lot more. So it's not very different from a lot of scenarios. I will add that there's no points for killing any enemy troops. It's all about the actual zone. So it's a nice and straightforward one. Quite a good one to choose if you're new and just not sure what to do. So this picture here will show you my opponent Darren at the top left, and we're just looking at the battlefield. And you can sort of see there, these 5 little circular items were placed on the battlefield are the middle points of those zones, with that clear bit of plastic in the center there being the central one that we're going to be going for. So I'm starting with 4 light regiments potentially, so I'm picking the priest and the militia at the top left to come on automatically, then rolling for the rest of them, but it's 4s or less, so they all come on automatically. So I've basically got 6 cards right from the outset. So you can see here that I'm just going to burn the 2 character cards first, and then play the Rangers, Hunter Cadre, Mercenaries, then Militia. And my opponent literally just has this one very beautiful unit of Satoroi. Look at them though. Hayden has just done such a great job painting them up. I've tried to bring the DSLR camera along to do them justice, but the lighting is terrible, and I'm using a very bad field of vision on my camera settings because A, it's not a very good camera, and B, I'm not a very good photographer. But from what you can see here, they are extremely well painted, even with the lighting being mixed around a lot in my photo editor. Opposite them, the priest and the militia marching on with Vanguard, because Imperial Officer gives them all that additional free juicy move at the start of the game, so they're going to be able to walk onto that objective straight away. Over through the middle, we've got the Hunter Cadre on the right and the Mercenaries on the left. Note that the Hunter Cadre are represented by bowman miniatures here. I just have like 6 stands of longbows, and I use them to proxy as either the Rangers, Cadre, or Longwomen themselves in my collection. On the right, you can see some shadows and lighting there from sunset. This is the Imperial Rangers and the Imperial Officer accompanying them. He's not with the Steel Legion. He's just going to use the mobility of the bowman to try and get himself onto the scoring, because he is a medium stand and they are lights. So this is an overview of turn 1. I've spread out all my shooting units onto the right, and the militia just going for the middle there. The forested hill is going to be quite good for keeping them from being bashed up by my opponent's brute units, like his bull minotaurs and his inquisitors, and of course his Hephaestion. So the forest will be helpful against all of that, because they'll lose inspired from going through that as well. So I'm rolling for my mediums. I'm actually picking up Order of the Sword as well this turn, and the Men-at-Arms. So even more cards. Looks like I've got 9 cards if I'm counting them up correctly. So just going to activate the priest and the other characters first, and then bring on the other units later once I've seen my opponent's positioning is the strat here. So these guys moving onto the battlefield. What are they called again? What are they called? Haspists, Minotaur Haspists. They have Vanguard as a base natural rule, so they're just marching on to collect his zone. Again, I just love how well these miniatures are painted. Our friend Hayden does an amazing job, and he's basically done a commission paint for our other buddy's army, so that's why they're all appearing at once. I'm putting, not Bastion, it's just really the +1 defense ability, just in case they get shot at by those Satoroi. So it's not literally Bastion, it's just to say +1 defense from his Theist Priest spell. Another amazing paint job, this is the Eidolon, who is accompanying the Inquisitors onto the battlefield here. They do not have Vanguard, so they're just plonking their way up the field. They are pretty speedy, though, so they'll get into the action before long, but just, I dialed up the vibrancy on these photos after editing to just get that blue cloak popping right out of the eyeballs. Speaking of blue, this is the large unit of hoplites, so he's got 6 stands of hoplites plus the auxiliary cow. These guys are pretty cool because defense 4 from the front with shields and phalanx, but they have the unit upgrade which allows them to use the leadership of the polemarch. This is really important because normally they resolve 2, which is really bad, but the Lukagos means that, oh my god, why is Iron Builder going so slow? Anyway, it's within 18 inches, you can use the friendly character stand, and of course, the Polemarch himself is Resolve 4. So, with the unit size as well, these guys are going to be quite resilient. But they are missing the damage output of a character. I personally quite like the Eidolon being deployed with these guys, but he's decided to opt for the Eidolon going in the Inquisitors for this game. So, the satyrs here, the Selenoi, moving up a bit further, trying to get a few shots off, but I don't believe he's quite in range at the moment, so just repositioning. The priest, moving just within range of that objective. He needs to be within 3 inches of the middle of that little objective marker, because it's a radius 3, diameter 6 zone, but this is going to net me a lot of points, because again, I can nominate one of the zones that I'm not capturing, and then once I capture it at the end of the turn, I get a big bonus. So the Mage coming on with a Militia, these guys aren't really there for close combat, so they're just deploying 2 wide, 2 deep, just to really guard her. It's basically like a little bunker here. They're very cheap at 105 points, and having the Mage quite safely and tidily tucked in with them means she can shoot her Kiss of Death, Farewell thing, Barrage 7, Volley 3, or 4 if she's aiming along with the regiment, and then shoot that little fireball. And from this position with the house guarding their flank, just doing that every turn is a great way to just really water down that flank and just make it so my opponent has to come to me, and I can just commit so many other units to the other side of the battlefield, going for the center and the right-hand side, and just cause my opponent, you know, to have to like expend the most resources coming to this little bottleneck here. On the other side, the Imperial officer has moved into range of this objective with his Imperial Ranger Corps. They're up against the Eidolon, as you can see in the far distance, with the Inquisitors, who will, of course, destroy them quite easily. But after I have a clearer view of what he's committing to this flank, I can then, counter-deploy with something like Ashen Dawn or Steel Legion, or Order of the Sword, just something which will shore this up and give me a fighting chance. And these guys can use their mobility with Liquid Formation to turn around at the start of the activation, march a really long way away, because the officer does give them double time, if we can remember that. So I really love that combo, by the way. Just the on your feet upgrade gives double time to the Ranger Corps. They have Fluid Formation, they turn around, they march 3 times. You've seen me use that in many bat reps before. I just think it's an amazing combination. So, just seeing that he may be moving his Inquisitors down the side of the table, I'm just completely reforming the Hunter Cadre and moving around a little way. And the plan is to set them up so that if he does chase me down, I can have this unit shooting volley after volley into their flank. And these guys have Fiend Hunter and AP1, so they're going to be quite effective against the Inquisitors. Maybe not for the AP1 because they've got evasion, but the Fiend Hunter definitely is going to do quite a lot of work. In the center, the mercenaries are just moving up really to screen. They are not going to be able to contend with the Selenoi for very long, because the Selenoi have a loose formation, so I'm half burst against them, and when they shoot back at me, they'll do a fair bit of damage. And of course, once the hoplites make it into the middle, they will eat these guys for breakfast. But these guys will act as a screen for either the Steel Legion or Order of the Sword, which will show up very shortly. Speaking of which, the Order of the Sword are next. I decide to deploy them 5 wide, because that's the number that will fit between those 2 buildings there. And in the next turn, the plan is to pop the Supremacy ability and march directly past the screen unit, and just hang out in the middle of the table, take a charge, use counterattack with the Blessed Rerolls or Evasion 2, try to get a duel in with my character, and just lock down the center of the table for a while, because that's going to then allow the shooting units to do a bit of work, and for other of my units to show up in the late game, like Steel Legion and Ashen Dawn, and deploy at a place which is more appropriate once I've seen where the opponent's regiments are committed. So this is an overview at effectively the end of turn 3, or is it turn 2? I think this is turn 2, actually. The units have moved up very far forward because of Vanguard. My opponent's still rolling in from a long distance because they're not as quick, but you can sort of see how these regiments are positioned from left to right: Militia, Men-at-Arms, Mercenary Crossbowmen, Order of the Sword, Hunter Cadre, and Imperial Ranger Corps on the right. From left to right for my opponent, Haspest, Selenoi, Hoplites, and Inquisitors, with many more to come. So in this next turn, this is where my heavies arrive, and I actually managed to pass the roll for the unit that I didn't pick. So I picked the Ashen Dawn to come automatically, rolled like a 1 or a 2 for the Steel Legion, so my entire army is now appearing. And we're going to start off with the Priest and the characters first, and then end with the units. The Militia will be going last, just because I need them to be in a position to countercharge anything that moves within their range. So the priest puts Blessed down. This is important because if anything does march to within charge distance, it sort of helps me to zone them out and to deter that, you know, close proximity by setting something up, something of a bit of a combo here with the Blessed. I'm not using Elysian Fragment yet though, so it's not quite the full combo. My opponent with these wonderful blue capes. Look at the little brushwork he's done, like little strokes on the sort of the raised areas. They just look really, really good. So this is the Agema, the elite of the city-states, with the Polymarch joining them, just coming up between the Hoplites and the Selenoid. I have decided to reposition my ranges just a little bit. This is partly to allow for the Hunter Cadre to march through them and past them, but partly also because I'm expecting his Satyr ambushes to show up around this side of the battlefield eventually. They will be very problematic if they charge the back of my Rangers, because then they'll wipe out my Warlord and the Rangers, and I'll have to turn another unit around to shoot at them. Probably not doing that well against them, so just trying to get prepared. As you can see here, the Hunter Cadre are marching directly through here, acting as a screen, and if he decides to commit the Inquisitors to the side of the battlefield, he's basically got 2 shooting units to go through. My shooting unit at the back can shoot over the one at the front because they're shooting at a size 2 target. You're allowed to do that, so his brutes will be up against a lot of arrows here, and there's still space on the right of them for the Ashen Dawn to appear and really just steamroll this flank, and that's going to cause my opponent a problem in the late game, due to the fact that all I really need is 1 unit to camp the objective on his side, gaining a lot of points. I can leave the officer here, and the Hunter Cadre will be free to move to the center and start putting pressure on the center units. So he's got Phalanx kicking in for these hoplites, just a wonderful paint job on these shields and everything else, just marching forward. Because of Phalanx, they can't really march that far, or they can't charge that far anyway, so not quite closing in on the central objective just yet. My crossbowmen are now shooting back at them, unleashing a withering hail of crossbow bolts as they always do, with the Order of the Sword just hanging out behind them, getting ready to march through. The Haspists deciding just to move on to the forest here, because they don't want to get charged by the Militia. They know if they do a double charge here, they'll just get charged by the Militia eventually, and the Mage is going to shoot them and to fireball them, so they're just trying to wait for a bit more backup. Here is the Order of the Sword, doing a double march right onto the objective. This is going to score me even more points. It's going to mean that there's going to be an inevitable combat between them and the Hoplites next turn. But because the Hoplites have already moved, there's no threat of a charge just yet, and the Order of the Sword can then pop the Supremacy ability next turn for the rerolls. They probably will die in the long run, but so long as they can hold the center for long enough, that will give time for my crossbowmen to do some work. The Hunter Cadre can come and put more pressure in the center if they make it through the Inquisitors, and I still have, you know, my 2 biggest units, that's the Steel Legion and the Ashen Dawn, yet to come. On the left, Phalangites moving in behind these Inquisitors. Phalangites are pretty cool. I do feel like they ought to be supported by like a character that has some really good unit support abilities like the Polymarch. Unfortunately, they don't really punch very well against enemy units just in a front, you know, close combat, roll them, more just to deter those high impact units like Crimson Tower Knights or Thunder Riders. They are quite good in that context, but overall, I do feel like this unit is a bit overcosted. They look great though, don't they? You know, just strike a wonderful pose there with those long pikes and those beautiful blue cloaks. The Mage are now just firing away, using the Kiss Farewell from the volley action, and then later on she'll get a card of her own to cast a fireball, and it's all going into those Haspists. So here we are with the Inquisitors. They're moving forward a couple of times here, just camping that objective to get him some more points, but they will be in a good range there, where if I charge my Order of the Sword to the bottom left here up into the Hoplites, they're going to expose the flank to the Inquisitors, and I'm actually okay with that, because with me being able to be evade 2 with rerolls, I'm not going to get completely wiped out. It's going to lock his units into one place. That will mean that the Hunter Cadre can move around and shoot them in the back. And there won't really be anything else in this flank apart from the phalangites to defend. He's going to be stuck leaving his phalangites on this objective, and I can eventually move my Ashen Dawn around there to wipe them out. After dealing with his Satyroid, most likely. You can see the Satyroid about to come on up the top there. I think they're due in next turn. So here are the Ashen Dawn. It's almost like the photo is very appropriate here. It's like the dawn is actually coming up and they are riding from the dawn. In reality, at our local gaming store, this was at sunset, so the sun's going down. You can see the long shadows. It's a very cool photo nonetheless. His giant, I really would have thought that he might have used the giant against the Ashen Dawn because it has so much cleave. I really thought that might have been the case, but he decided instead to go after the men-at-arms and the militia, heading towards the forest there behind the Haspists, and that is the plan. But yeah, again, I just don't know if that was the right place to put him. So seeing that he's doing that, I decided to move all of the Steel Legion through the flank here. This initial photo was me preparing to stop the Satyroid from having anywhere to move on, because the gap between the bottom left here and my side of the table was not enough to really fit the Satyroid through. But then I realized actually they're not coming on this turn, they're coming on next turn, so I decided to deploy them up here instead. They have Vanguard, so they can march forward a really long way, but I wanted to play for the real long haul here and really go for the late game. They don't have an opponent here, and I'm going to be able to deal with the Haspists, but deploying them here means that in the long run they can use double time to march all the way around the side at 15-16 inches per turn, eventually deal with that giant because they're very good at killing him, and then he won't have much left to deal with that side of the battlefield. I could have just put them through through the middle or the right hand flank. I just didn't feel like I needed them there. So they won't have anything to fight straight away, but eventually they'll move around and they'll be in a position that my opponent should not really be able to deal with once they've had a couple of good marches. So here we have the Selenoi just deciding to move around a little bit and just reposition a little bit and try to go after the men-at-arms, just getting a few shots off, taking another photo of them just since they look so amazing. I love these sculpts. Just look at them. They just look really incredible. Over here, we have the Mage launching a bit of a fireball against these cows, and the Priest, as one of the last units to activate this turn, marching onto the objective, just to make it harder for my opponent to keep him away from it. And you can see here, if the Haspists charge the Militia, it's going to mean that they get charged in the flank by the Mage, and they're going to get hit by all sorts of fireballs. They're going to go through the forest, they're going to lose their impact hits, they're going to lose Inspired, they're in for a really bad time. So, next turn, I will be activating the Order of the Sword first because they are directly in front of the hoplites, and I'd really prefer to get the charge rather than be charged. But if I do get charged, it's going to be okay because I'm on the Supremacy turn, so we're going to be able to fight regardless. And then I'm going to try and use the Priest and the Militia to just use Elysian Fragment and do charging and stuff. The Mage straight after that. In fact, I've got the Militia last, and I think that's mainly just because I really want them to be able to just counterattack whatever sort of comes near me. Like if I have them too early in the stack and my opponent wins the roll and moves the Haspist away from them, for example, they might end up being wasted. The other thing is the Satyroid will be coming on this turn, so I'm having the Steel Legion activate very late into the game, because I feel like he may come onto the back of the table and try to get the Satyroid into a position to block me, and I just want to be able to turn around and deal with them if he decides to go on that flank. Okay, so I managed to win the roll here, thank God, and my opponent kind of cringes about that because I had more cards than him. And the Order of the Sword just charged straight into these hoplites and just start whack at them. Of course, these Chaos Warriors miniatures are 3D printed. I bought them on Etsy. They are not actually released units by Parabellum. They're meant to have swords, and some of these models actually do, but they are absolutely walloping these unit of hoplites with their Cleave 1 and a Clash 4 and all of that sort of cool stuff, and plenty of attacks. Relentless Drill from a couple of different, one extra supporting attack from the back. And of course the boss there with Deadly Blades. So that is going to reduce them down to just 3 stands of hoplites plus the cow. They do eventually get broken because when the character makes his attacks, he takes out like yet another stand. So a very powerful attack indeed. They do benefit from the resolve of the Polemarch nearby though because of that character upgrade. As a retaliation, he decides to march into the side there with his Inquisitor and the Eidolon. Unfortunately, the Eidolon out of focus in this photo, but because of the evade, I do get the rerolls, and this causes a bit of counterattacks, does a bit of damage to his brute, and although I lose a couple of stands here, I managed to sort of keep the unit intact. So you can sort of see his unit just being shoveled along the side there. He's in fact lost an entire brute through various things happening here, and I've still got 3 stands plus the character, and I'm still on the objective, which is quite important. Over here, the Theist Priest is putting Blessed on the Militia and using Elysian Fragment because I just want to be able to keep camping this zone for longer, and I want to make sure I absolutely wipe out those Haspists with the Smite ability as soon as possible. I could use it against the Giant. I just feel like if the Giant attacks me first, I really won't have anything left, so may as well use it while I've got it. Over here, the Mage just repositioning a bit further and using more volley onto those Haspists, just preparing for the inevitable assault. We have the Mercenary Crossbowmen in an amazing position here. This is why we set up the frontal position with the Order of the Sword. They are now in half range, that's effective range, and they are standing still to get the volley bonus to aim. All of it's going into the Inquisitors, and this pops off yet another stand. So they're just in the perfect position to really capitalize on that. And I've even got 2 stands in range of that objective circle, just in case he obliterates me, just to help contest that zone. Over the side here, the Hunter Cadre are moving around, and you can sort of see that a couple of stands can shoot past that house at the back of the Inquisitors, and with the rerolls from Fiend Hunter, does even more damage on them. I did roll quite low, even with the rerolls, so I didn't get as much work done as I would have liked, but it's still a pretty powerful position to be in, because once he loses his last Inquisitor, the Eidolon's going to go down as well, and we'll be left with a central zone where he's basically got no troops, and I'm just hanging on with like 1 or 2 regiments. The Ashen Dawn, as you can see, are ready to roll past them through the Ashen Dawn shadows. My opponent's seeing that he's positioned a little bit poorly, trying to get the Agema to move past, but the position of the Selenoi and the hoplites mean that they can't really quite get a good angle to get in combat, so he's having to sort of just shunt the back for a moment and leave them until a little bit later in the day. Over here, forming up a little bit of a box with my Imperial officer, I'm trying to put them in a position where it's just a bit harder for him to get a good proper charge off with the Satoroi when they inevitably ambush me. It also puts me in a position where I can stay within 3 inches of that objective and continue to get those lovely and juicy objective points. Over here, the Haspists have been pretty badly damaged by the Mage, and they've lost a stand already. So we'll be expecting them to be fighting shortly, but they're going to be doing even less damage while they're not in combat. Over here, the Hephaestian, the giant, the Titan, is now moving onto the objective. He's going to need to camp there for a while, because if the Haspists move away from it, there needs to be some kind of scoring unit there to continue collecting those lovely points. But look at his hair. That blue hair, it's just the same as the cloaks, but it's still it's just so bright and eye-popping. It looks really cool. Okay, you can also see sort of the zoomed out view where the Mage is coming in from, so you can sort of see that the Haspist is going to try and deal with those regiments, but when they do inevitably die, it's going to be between the 2 spellcasting characters and the Hephaestian. He does have spell interference, which is useful, but he's got no long-range stuff, so if I continue this position, I should be able to just whittle him down over a period of time with Kiss Farewell and with the Fireballs, Fire Dart. Look at this photo, though. The Phalangite's moving on to the objective on the left-hand side now that his Inquisitors have vacated the region and managed to get lucky with this bit of photography with all of the shadows coming through, looking really cool. But these guys are not going to last long because they are alone on the flank with the Ashen Dawn, and although they turn off Inspired and Impact hits with their pikes, the Ashen Dawn don't really rely on those 2 things. They just wallop you with Blessed and wipe you out, so they're not going to last long. Speaking of which, double march from the Ashen Dawn. We don't care about the Satoroi at this point. If he brings the Satoroi on next to the Ashen Dawn and then wins the roll and charges me in the flank, I will be laughing all the way to the bank, because the Ashen Dawn just won't care about that. They will pass almost every armor save, they'll pass the resolve checks, and then when it's my turn, the Ashen Dawn will just like wipe them off the face of the planet and then continue on to kill the Phalangites. And that's probably why this position is so strong for 100 Kingdoms. And also why, you know, Ashen Dawn are overpowered. Like, we're really hoping for the balance patch update coming, apparently it's next month. I thought it was going to be today, but it's next month, where hopefully these guys will get a points increase. A nerf. Through the middle, we still have things going on. The Priory commander notices that his unit has been broken, so he's just activating and rallying them through the middle there. Over this side, the Steel Legion are continuing to move through here, just threatening to charge that giant from the flank next turn. If the giant charges them, well, they will take a lot of casualties, but Steel Legion have bravery. They can throw off broken. They can attack them quite badly, so I'm pretty happy to have that fight. Then finally we have the ambushes, the Satoroi. If you guys aren't too familiar with these guys, they have some really cool special rule here where they may arrive from any board edge, including your opponent's reinforcement edge, ignoring all enemy regiments when arriving from the reinforcements. Character stands can't be attached to them. They have opportunists, so they get rerolls. So what he's doing is he's marching them directly behind the Steel Legion. In the next turn, he will charge me from behind. I'll be rerolling all past morale checks, and he'll be rerolling all of his attack rolls. So I'm about to get clobbered. I'm okay with it though, because Steel Legion have Oblivious, so they halve the number of resolve checks that they fail, and they are defense 3, and you know, I only need a few stands to stay alive to attack back. And what he's doing here is he's effectively committing, you know, a 200-point unit, and 3 stands of Steel Legion aren't even worth 200 points. So yeah, I do feel okay with this. Now over here, finally time for the militia to march, and they are using Elysian Fragment, which means that those 2 Haspis cows get absolutely pasted. They are deleted and evaporated by these militia because I have Blessed and Smite. So even going through the forest, I'm not getting inspired. It's just 2s to hit. So I've got 9 attacks from the front, 9 in the back, plus the priest, and everything's getting rerolled, and any hit translates into an automatic wound unless he's got evade. But needless to say, the Haspits are completely removed. There's one last glamour shot of them before they get absolutely trounced and wiped. Look at that armor. Look at that fur. Just amazing, amazing paint job. Okay, so this is the end of the turn, the zoom out look. So in the middle, the Order of the Sword are just barely hanging on by a thread against the Hoplites and the Auxiliary Cow and the Eidolon. Once I get a little bit more of an opportunity to shoot the Inquisitors with my Merc Crossbows and Hunter Cadre, he will lose his character because he's basically just got 2 wounds left on the regiment if you are looking at just the one remaining stand of Inquisitors. So I'm happy with how the center is going. He will inevitably move the Agema through there, but the important thing is that I can continue shooting at the Agema with my ranged units. On the left, the Satoroi are going to be whacking the Steel Legion, so they're going to be held up for a while. And I have the Giant against the Militia and the Men-at-Arms, so that sort of side of the table is yet to be determined. It could go either way. On the right-hand side of the table, though, because I have not been attacked by the Satoroi, he's deployed everything. The Imperial officer is free to just score for the rest of the game. The Ashen Dawn are about to wipe the Phalangites off the face of the earth, so I'm going to be scoring from both of those zones for the rest of the game, freeing up the Hunter Cadre and the Mercenary Crossbowmen just to focus on the center of the table. So it's going to be a hard one for him to come back from. With that in mind, we're going to activate the Order of the Sword first, followed by the Hunter Cadre and then the Ashen Dawn. We're going to let the Steel Legion get charged. I'm fine for that to happen. What I want to do is just to eliminate his Eidolon and the Inquisitors ASAP and start shooting the last of the Hoplites just to clear up that chaff there, and also just to make sure that the Ashen Dawn get onto those objectives to score, and everything else just not too concerned with. So the Eidolon is now battling away against the Order of the Sword here. We do have the character not really in a challenge just yet, but managing to survive just a little bit longer, I believe. We then have the Satoroi charging the back of the Steel Legion. They do a lot of work. Of course, you've got Inspired and rerolls, and this is just Defense 3, so a lot of men here are slain. But again, they have Oblivious, so they are not going to take that many resolves. This ends up wiping 3 stands, and you can see that the Sator are just pushing up here against 3 remaining stands of Steel Legion. But you've got to appreciate that the Steel Legion have Bravery, so they're going to remove Broken. They're going to Inspire, so it's going to be Clash 4 or 5 or whatever it is, and then they're going to attack like 19 times, because it's 6 attacks per stands plus the leader. So 19 stands at Clash 4 is just going to obliterate those Satyrs. So there's not too much that they can do there, even coming in from the rear. We now have the Hunter Cadre pushing through and just sniping those Inquisitors, and that does the trick. There's only a couple of wounds left, so bows and arrows in the back, and they are gone. The Hephaestian now charging the Militia, and of course, even without Inspire, the Hephaestian doing a lot of work with his attacks here. He's got a lot of cleave. The Militia have no evade, so every single hit converts into a kill, and my resolve is not particularly high. So with a lot of dice being rolled here, I end up getting almost completely wiped out, leaving me with literally just 1 wound left on the regiment, with the character surviving and 1 command stand surviving. They are now broken, but wow, this was very, very close. Realistically, it shouldn't actually have been close. It should have left me with maybe 1 or 2 stands, but with the dice rolls going this way, it just worked out to be 1 wound left. Over the side, I think we can all predict this one. The Ashen Dawn just being in charge range automatically. They just walk in here. They waltz in. And we're talking about 6 per stand times 3 plus the leader is 19. They Clash 4. They don't have Inspired because of pike formation. But they just decide to use Blessed on the offensive anyway, because they're not going to take any return attacks apart from the Aristarch when the unit's wiped out. And with that number of attacks at Cleave 2, there's just no way that this unit can live, and they just absolutely trounced, completely wiped, and of course the objective is right there, so the Ashen Dawn are now camping it. In the middle, sorry, I think I had mentioned that the Eidolon had been wiped out. I don't think that quite happened yet, but it did happen at some point. We have the Selenoi trying to delete these Merc crossbows, so just doing a little bit more damage onto them, removing, I think, another stand. And then, hilariously, of course, this giant has been wounded a lot because we have been shooting at him with the mage, with her shooting attack and her fireball, and now the priest puts in a holy fire on him, and of course, even with spell interference, he does manage to pick up a few hits there with a really good roll, and he's got focused for a couple of rerolls, and the giant is actually able to get wiped out of here eventually after the unit has also attacked him. So this was huge. Like, if he had managed to pick them off earlier with the Satoroi, like this unit here, see that the unit of Selenoi with the archers, if they'd turn around and shoot it at the last remaining model in the forest, this wouldn't have happened, where the priest was able to knock the giant down. So maybe a poor decision from my opponent there. We did talk about that later. He could have sort of kept that giant alive just a bit longer. Through the middle, we've got literally 1 stand of hoplites left, just not able to accomplish very much. And then these Mercenary Crossbowmen able to fire just a couple more bolts into combat. If you look at the photo at the bottom right, there's a dice which has the number 4 at the top. That is to indicate that the Inquisitor has suffered 4 wounds. I think that previously it was on a 2 because the Hunter Cadre had shot at them and done 2 more wounds to them, leaving this guy with 1 wound left, and then finally the Merc crossbows take him out, so they are now gone. And in the meantime, the Agema, just looking for a better opportunity to join the combat. Over here, the Mage, firing a bit of a fireball at the Selenoi at the top of the photo. She's in a great position because the Giant's gone, the Sator have been dealt with, the Men-at-Arms are a medium unit, they can camp that objective, so things looking great for 100 Kingdoms. Through here, we have the Agema. These guys now charge through into the Order of the Sword, very easily wiping them out. These guys are just very badly hurt. They only have a couple of wounds left in that main unit, so they've already activated, so there's no fight back. So the Agema and the Polemarch are easily able to put them to death. You can now see the Imperial officer just reforming with his liquid formation with the Imperial Rangers, and he is on the right-hand side flank, so he can stay within range of that objective zone. and the rest of them are in a position where they can shoot at the Agema if they come any further forward onto that large circular zone. So it's going to allow me to keep scoring from both of the objectives on the right hand side of the table with the Imperial Officer and the Ashen Dawn, and all of the other shooting units are going to be able to focus on the middle to eventually stop my opponent from getting any points out of that area. Over here we have the Steel Legion finally getting their time to strike back and just turn around and swing their great swords and wipe out these little satyrs once and for all. The Mage reforming along with these Militia and firing off with her Kiss Farewell at the Selenoy and the Agema. And this is it. You can see the end of this turn where on the left the Steel Legion are there by themselves. My opponent really has just 3 cards left. He's got the Satyrs, or the shooting Satyrs, the Selenoy, the Agema, and the Polemarch. He's lost everything else, and I've got all of these units, as you can see. So the game's over. I'm just going to quickly whip through the photos. This is my next order of activation with the Priest, Mage, Militia, Men-at-Arms, Steel Legion, and so on. So just a bit of shooting going on over here. He's able to wipe out the Militia with his bows. And then these crossbows just hanging and chilling here against those hoplites on the objective. They're trying to finish them off. The Steel Legion moving on to this objective, so they're going to set up later on. And as a Agema, just deciding to vacate the middle of the table and just going after one of my remaining regiments. I did actually have to switch from my DSLR camera to the cell phone at this point because I ran out of battery. So I'll just quickly show you them, because since the photos are so good looking, we eventually have the Agema trying to charge the Steel Legion, rolling too low and not making it far enough. So the Men-at-Arms charge him on one flank, the Steel Legion charge him from the front, and that's basically it. That was just like the end of the game, unfortunately. So I'm not too sure what other photos I picked up. They're around about here. So that's what happened here. He just failed the charge at that point, gets charged in the flank. The bow is trying to turn around the Steel Legion through the front, and we ended up like 34-16 at turn 6, and at turn 7 he conceded. So that was about it, really. Hope you guys enjoyed this little bat rep. Hope you enjoyed those photos of the City-States army. They look really, really good. And now that they are up and running, we're going to be having a lot more games against them. I'll also have my Dwegon painted pretty soon, and hope you guys enjoy seeing them on the table. They're starting to look really, really good. But for now, hope you enjoyed the happy hour today with the Sorcerer Kings being released. More on them later. Looking forward to the rules patch next month. Apparently it's still a while off, but I've got hopes that the game will continue to improve. So I'll see you guys when that comes out, and hopefully put some more bat rips out in the meantime. Please like and subscribe in the meantime.